Welcome to Nuggets for the Sound Musician. Get ready for insights to elevate your journey as a musician. Let's gear up, improvise, and get paid.
All right, we're here for another episode for the Sound Musician podcast. And on today, I have a good friend of mine and a phenomenal musician, a man of integrity, and a great producer, bass player, and just always been consistent from when I discovered him on YouTube. And so we were talking. We've done some projects together. I've recorded on his projects, some things with him, and he's recorded some things with me. So I thought it'd be great to come back together and do another video. And so I wanted to introduce everybody to Mr. Jermaine Morgan.
What's up, folks? What's up?
All righty. Cool, man. Appreciate you for coming on and doing another podcast here.
Absolutely, man. Pleasure to be here. We're long overdue for this one.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah.
And I know we can, you can excuse my brother's sound, because I know y'all probably used to the production being really nice and sounding good, but his interface had went out, right?
Got my mic here, but one of those studio things happen.
Yes, stuff happens.
At the worst possible time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you got to make do and continue to be fruitful.
Absolutely.
So let's dive in, man. I wanted to just introduce people who don't know you,
Okay.
introduce people to you and kind of what you do. And you can start from the framework of like how I discovered you, as a bass player, and I guess some of the things that you were doing. I don't know what year that was.
Dude, that's been at least 2016.
Okay.
Yeah, either 2016, 2017. Now, I don't know how you discovered me personally, but how I discovered you after you had discovered me was you posted something on Instagram and you tagged me in it. I don't know if you had your group, your quintet or whatever. Y'all were playing.
We played your song.
Y'all played a cover of my song, and I was like, yo, this is kind of dope, man. And you tagged me in a video, and I checked it out. I'm like, man, they are killing. First and foremost, they are killing. Like, who is this guy that's ripping? Were you playing the E-Weed on that one? On that video?
I don't remember, maybe.
Something like that. But anyway, you were killing. And so I connected with you because I think I was in the process of writing for, we were actually in the process of recording for my next album that I was doing. That was a band record. And that's the Dreams Work Reality Part 1. And I'm like, man, I want to do something with you. So anyway, you and I exchanged numbers, and we've been rocking ever since. So it's been solid 8 years almost.
8 years.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah. So at the time, I remember on YouTube, I found you, and I think I was, Derek Bennett was like the cat blazing, on bass at the time. And then I ended up finding your video, and I was like, let me check this out. And you had that nice intro that came on that reminded me of like, the 90s, like the Cosby Show or Martin or, the Wayans. You had that nice introduction, the In Living Color vibe,
Oh, wow. Wow. Old school.
Yeah, you had that nice soulful intro for Jermaine Morgan TV. And I was like, man, this guy is on to some stuff. So, but yeah, I was like, man, this is nice. And so I discovered your music that way. And I was listening to, Prayer Melody. What's that one? Life?
Yeah, the Life album. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was like, man, this is really, really nice. And in terms of language and dialect, we have a lot of similarities, in terms of the soulful dialect musically with the melody and just the arrangements and everything. I was like, man, this is really, really nice.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, and I think in a prior podcast you and I done, we talked about both of us having the roots from the church and just kind of growing up, have traditional church moving more into the modern thing, and you have all those roots and all of that stuff working together, fused with the fusion and jazz and all that kind of stuff to create that sound, with that vocalist kind of always being front and center, whether you're mimicking the vocal with your instrument or you're kind of supporting the vocal, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and you had like the thing that really was interesting and appealing to me, like you would write your tunes and then you would set them up like how can I say?
Like a regular song?
Like a regular song, right?
Yeah, that's the format. It was A, B, C, and then, vamp, whatever you want to call it.
See, that's brilliant. And so I wasn't thinking like that. Like my approach, songwriting wise, I've been in church all my life, but I studied a lot of jazz. And so I was thinking melody, and then, bridge or whatever, then we solo, then we'll play the melody again and we might do a vamp at the end. Yeah. But since, I guess also from being connected with my church, my pastor, and how they were writing songs for worship, I started really paying attention to the different formats, and so I was like, oh, okay, I need to start creating music based on a different type of format,
Yeah, and I think it comes down to preference, because when you take and listen to, I'm back and forth, because the stuff that you played on with the Dreams Work Reality record, for instance, I kind of veered back to my old style. What you were saying, how you were writing before, I kind of went back to that style of writing a bit, a little bit, because that's how I initially started writing. Like whatever came out, that was it. We have a melody, we might go solo section, we might go vamp, or whatever the case might be. But I think as I became a producer here, professionally here, when I moved to Atlanta, and I started seeing the structure and the formats of songs and how most popular music is, I kind of followed that with my music, trying to make sure that it was radio, so to speak. And so that Life record was more structured around that kind of setting. But I got back to some of that other style of writing, where it's more like I'm not saying the style was more like Snarky Puppy, but those songs, you don't know where they're gonna go, in terms of that free-flowing, more jazz format style. So I kind of got back to a little bit of that. So I jump around. I go back and forth personally. Yeah.
But you're very like we were talking offline on the phone, and I was like, you have a leadership and perspective, and even like entrepreneurial minded. It's a lot of killing bass players that I know, but you're like one of the only ones that have that perspective, like as a producer, a leader, entrepreneurship. A lot of cats don't have that. Not even just bass players. So I was telling you, I was like, that's a gift. You know what I'm saying? You, of course, we got to practice and everything, but just your conceptual vision is very unique, and that's a God thing.
Well, I agree. And you and I, like you said, you and I were talking on the phone about this particular subject, and I one of the things I mentioned to you is it's a gift, but just like music, for me, it had to be developed, because us as creatives, we can be all over the place, and I think most of us think short term as creatives. We're only thinking about short term, the big picture of the short term, and I think just adulting in general helped me to bring out what God had already placed in me, those leadership qualities that you're mentioning, and that just, conceptualization of having something finished, because beforehand, man, it's like I was just doing stuff, and I just, oh, this is a track, this is a track, this is a track. But I think when I had kids, I had my daughter, my first child. I didn't have it. No, my wife heard me say that. But when we had our first child, it was like something switched. Because as you and I were talking yesterday, as a primarily Christian musician, and you're trying to be a 100% musician, that's all you do, full-time musician, for lack of better words, you kind of limited on your options at times, being a church cat, because if you're not, fortunately, I was at a church situation that was very lucrative, being new birth at the time, but that we went through some stuff, and the musicians took a pay cut, and so that pay cut, I felt that all in my house. I felt that pay cut. And so where I had kind of laid back on some of the gigs, because I got new birth, that gig probably within being in Atlanta for about a year and a half. And I was newly married when I got that gig. Matter of fact, I got married right after I landed that gig. And so anyway, having that, and then your finances be affected dramatically, and then you're trying to be selective with the certain gigs that you're getting, and just being honest as a musician, man, people throwing you stuff, but if you're not on major tours and stuff like that, a lot of time the average pay would be anywhere from $150 to $300.
Yeah.
And depending on the type of way your schedule is set up, that could be a little bit of money, that could be a lot of money, depending on how you do things and the way your life is set up, cost of living. And for me, some of the better paying gigs often felt like I was compromising my integrity, who I was. And so that put me in a place where it's like, okay, I don't want to keep accepting these gigs, because certain things as a young man, a married man, that I'm trying to shake as a man, I'm trying to shape things that, and I know this podcast don't really supposed to go here, but certain things as a believer that I'm trying to shake and get out of my life, struggles that I shouldn't have, especially a married man and a believer. I'm trying to get rid of this stuff, and I noticed some of these gigs that I was doing was pulling me more into the direction that I was trying to get away from. And so I'm like, man, we got a conflict of interest here, like, because I know we're in a day where everybody want to be politically correct, and everybody want to identify with their pronoun. Listen, I identify as a 100% male man. Like, just I ain't interested in nothing but women, period. And so that presented a struggle, just being 100. That presented a struggle for me, because now I'm in environments where the things that you're exposed to kind of tugging on you. They're tugging on you being like a man of integrity. I mean, we used to be 100 being musicians. There are a lot of environments that you're in that they're tugging on who you are as a man. And you want to make sure that you're being 100% who you say you are. And oftentimes these environments don't allow you to do that. So I had to find alternatives. So all that being said, that led to me finding alternative ways to number one, provide for my family outside of the church, because now I'm seeing that the church, I can't depend 100% on that. So if I'm thinking 5-10 years down the road, it's like, this not gonna work. These little $150 gigs ain't gonna cut it long term. If my wife needs a new car, and I need a new car, and everything I got right now is set up on the money that I have, then this ain't gonna cut it. So what can I do? What can I create that gives me a little bit more wiggle room as a man, that I can give my wife? I told my good friend Carlin McCullough, he's the CEO of Shed Tracks, but he and I was talking, and one of the things I told him, this is before he did Shed Tracks. Well, not just after he did Shed Tracks. We do business talk like you and I do all the time. Me and Carlin do that. And so one of the things I told Carlin, I said, man, I want to be able to give my wife more yeses than no's. Because as a musician, as rewarding as it is to do what we do, sometimes that strain can come on the finances, to where it's like, well, we'll have to do this on another time. Well, we can do this here, especially if you're trying to be responsible. And so I got tired of putting everything off because I didn't have the money to do it. So I had to start finding ways to create the money.
Mhm.
So anyway, I'm gonna shut up.
No,
It's it.
no, that's great, bro. I mean, I believe we all come to that point, you know, as believers, our convictions and the options that we have as musicians. It's like you get to the point, it's like, nah, I don't like this, so I need to change.
Yeah.
And um, so with sticking with that, you made a decision to go all in with YouTube
Yeah.
and building your online, you know, students and courses and stuff like that. So tell me, what what was that like when you first got started?
Be honest, when I didn't even know that's what I was doing when I started. YouTube started for me as an outlet for my own music, and you know, you hear this whole thing, you know, bass player is supposed to be the pocket, that's the foundation of the band. But I'm hearing all these melodies, I'm hearing all this stuff in my head, and nowhere else to get it out. And I wasn't like doing the solo gigs and stuff like that. So YouTube just started being an outlet for me to just put some stuff out there, some things I was hearing, and play around with it and let a few people hear it, see what they thought about it. And then it shifted for me a couple of years in to where I started showing bass licks and stuff that I would come up with. Because prior to that, what I would do is I would always call a friend, some friends that was in my circle, hey man, check out this thing I just came up with, it's pretty cool. And I would let them hear it. And it's like, one day I just decided to start doing that on YouTube. And I noticed the views from those type videos versus just performance videos, the views were higher and people were more engaging. And so I learned something quickly. I'm like, people are more interested in knowing how I do what I do rather than just being impressed at watching me do what I do.
Yeah, right.
And so
right.
based on that, I said, okay, well, I put out a few more videos. I think I put out, I want to say 6 grooving licks. It's still like one of my most popular videos on YouTube to this day. But I put out that video and I seen how many responses I got. So based on that, I said, I wonder what would happen if I put out a course with some licks, or like, you know, whatever you call it. Because at the time, I don't even know if I call it a course. But I put it out and started making some money from it. I'm like, wait, I might be on to something.
Right.
And so I did another one and another one and another one. And so it turned into what it became now, because at that time there weren't a whole bunch of people like there are today who were doing the online course and marketing. You know, they weren't as, you see them, you can walk out your door and see them now, but back then it wasn't as commonplace. So that's how we got there.
That's good. And so so you were doing YouTube and creating videos, editing videos. The thing that stood out about you, your production was really good all the time. Like I said, the intro, and then you were, you know, really good with the aesthetics of what you were putting out there. Where did that vision come from?
Now I got to give that to my wife. We've always kind of been a tag team because I've always done music production. I mean, pretty much since I can remember. And my wife was, I wasn't set up to do video production, so to speak, but my wife was a photographer, and I like the camera froze for a second. My wife was a photographer, and she was working with all the different types of cameras. And so I'm audio and she's visual. So everything aesthetically that we had going on, that was like kind of her. I would tell her what I'm looking for and she would make it happen. And so she really helped me there to bring that vision together. So I got to give all the credit for the visual stuff to her. Until I figured out how to edit the videos, it was my wife kind of helping me figure it out. So little by little, I learned it over time. And then I like now I do it myself. But at the beginning, it was a lot of her placing the camera, because all I knew how to do with DSLR camera was turn it on. That's all I knew how to do. So, and I figured out over time how to edit the videos. And that that just came with doing it over and over again. And so that's how that worked.
What software do you use to edit your videos?
I started out with iMovie. The first video editing software I was using was iMovie, and then we moved to Adobe Premiere. Yeah, we moved to Adobe Premiere, and that's kind of what we've been. We stayed with Adobe Premiere.
Okay. Is my audio still cool?
Yeah, your audio's fine.
Okay. So, wow. So you're in the process now. I'm just thinking about, as you were saying, that you were needing to change what your approach to making money with your music. And so you go all in with doing videos on YouTube and creating courses and things. And so are you still, you're playing at the church, you're creating videos, and then you're teaching lessons and playing gigs still, or what's going on?
Yeah, so all of the above. So I was playing. The church was my main source of income. At that time, the church was my main source of income. I was definitely doing the courses and those types of things, building that. In-person lessons, I kind of phased out of that over time and started focusing more on creating the video content, because that's when I started creating the monthly membership lessons, where I would record one lesson a week and I would post those lessons on the website every single week. So I created a continuity program, and so I allowed people to pay, like, I think at the time we were doing like maybe $11.99 a month. And so I seen long term that worked better than me trying to do all those in-person lessons, because the problem with in-person lessons at times, depending on how you're set up, you're always limited to time. And I didn't want to use up all of my time and not be available for other things. So the church, you have the website stuff, had gigging, and then I was doing a lot of music production and being a session musician as well, being a remote session musician. So those were like my main, I guess, 5 sources, with the church and the session musician being like the 2 highest forms of income for me at the time.
So what year was this?
This pretty much been the whole time, for as far as from the website stuff. I didn't really dive full into the website stuff until about 2015, 2016, somewhere in there is when I was already doing YouTube videos since 2009, but I really got deep into the website stuff around 2016, when we went full in and just trying to really make it a lucrative business. But the session musician stuff has pretty much been going, and the whole time that I've been in Atlanta, I've been here since about 2006. And so I would say my session musician stuff picked up around 2008, 2009, as far as doing it on a regular basis. And that's been going the whole time. I've slowed down nowadays, but that has been an ongoing thing as far as the session music thing.
And speaking of which, I think one of, was this the first one? I know we recorded some things with each other, but I think you produced Waiting for You first, I believe. And then you, that right there, basically, me and my friend was in my studio, and he actually came up with the phrase, dee 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 do do dee 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 do 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 da. And so I was just playing around with it with the EWI, and then I was like, you know what? And I saw that, I think you were advertising that you were producing tracks for people, and you had your pricing and all of that kind of stuff on the website. And so I reached out to you, and we talked about some things, and you were able to produce that for me.
Yeah. So that's just that part of it, man, in terms of just a lot of stuff is just keeping something going. I think the if we had to give a theme for this conversation, it's about kind of with this part of the conversation. I was just being resourceful.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just the name of the game. Name of the game for any musicians, being resourceful, not always waiting on somebody to give you a shot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just always trying to find ways, trying to create something that helps you to, you know, further your music journey. Keep food on the table. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you have to do to make that happen. Just being creative, just thinking outside of the box. So I think you came around. I think I was running a special, and at the time that you and I connected on that song. And again, that's one of those things, man, where that was around COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So around that time, a lot of my students had dropped off because there was a lot of that first wave that happened.
Yeah.
A lot of unsurety, so people started dropping off. People were kind of penny pinching with their money. You know, nobody really want to spend money like that. So, you know, as musicians, we got to keep something going because for a lot of people at that time, I had already stepped down from New Birth. I stepped down in 2019. So by the time COVID hit, I had already been out there swimming in the deep waters. You know what I'm saying? I was full time. By myself out here in these streets, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I was having to figure it out. So I was doing whatever I needed to do as a producer, as a musician, to keep work consistent. So that's around that time. So just being resourceful, man.
That's good, bro. But what I'm saying again, you know, you had that vision and you had the work ethic to keep on being resourceful. And I was the same way. I was doing stuff earlier on, like 2007, 8, 9. I was doing like Skype lessons and doing live streams and recording, live streaming rehearsals and stuff. And this was like at a time when the stuff had just first presented itself.
Yeah.
You know, and so I saw the opportunity and I was able to jump on top of it. And I was always encouraging my students and other musicians, man, you need to take advantage of this, the online and Skype lessons, YouTube and all of that, because you're taking what you do every day or every week, like locally, you're able to share that internationally, and it opens up a whole bunch of opportunities. And so, you know, people, some guys kind of take things for granted when they're on tour and they're making money and, you know, have a church gig and all of that until the pandemic happened, and then stuff, you know, there's nothing going on, and then everybody's like, dang, Quamon, how do you do that? What you doing? How can I get that going? It's like, it's like, man, I was doing really well during the pandemic, you know, because like you said, we were resourceful, but we had been doing it. We, like you say, swimming in the deep water. We had already gauged things before something like the pandemic had happened.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and that's that vision thing. I think that's the part. If you're gonna be a leader, that's the job of a leader, man. Not to just kill the gig, but the visual I get in my mind is somebody being on a ship, and you're responsible for all these people that's on this boat or the ship or whatever, and you're looking way ahead because that's going to tell you in what direction you should steer the ship. You're watching your gauges, you're looking at whatever instruments that you have, or a pilot, you're paying attention. You're not just looking at the water as the captain of the ship. You're not just looking at the water You're looking way ahead. You're looking way on down to see what's coming. You got somebody, or at least you have something or someone in position that's telling you what's coming so that you can lead the people that you're charged to lead to the best of your ability. I think it's irresponsible of a leader to only look at the ground in front of them. As a leader, you don't have a choice. You gotta look way down the road and try to figure out, how can I position myself right now and with the best trajectory to get me 5 years, to get me 10 years, to get me 15 years down the road, to get my family safely, or whoever else that's connected to me, especially if we're entrepreneurs and we're hiring other people. I got to be looking down the road. How can I create opportunities for these people who work with me, or for these people who expect for me to call them for this, that, and the other? Well, I got to do things that position me to be able to help them the best, or else I'm being irresponsible with the opportunity. I'm only looking at today and next week or next month. That's going to be short-lived. And so as a leader, I'm responsible to look, what's the saying, a man who fails to plan plans to fail. So you have to be thinking ahead, even if it means getting off the beaten path and doing something completely different that looks off to everybody else. Kind of, I guess we could segue to where I am now, doing something that looks completely off to everybody else in order to set your future self up to move like you want to.
Come on now.
That's a very scary thing, because it's uncharted territory. Anytime you're in that leadership role, it's uncharted territory, and you're not sure how this thing you're going to do is going to work. But that's the whole point, in my opinion, of walking by faith, not by sight. Because if you're only going on what you can see, if you're only dependent on whatever gig, whether it be the church, whether it be, I got some good situations, I'm on a tour, all of that stuff is fickle. It's all fickle. And so if you're only dependent on that one thing, then you're putting your family at risk. If you have a family, or your future self, you're putting at risk of falling every single time. Because I've said multiple times, you could be on a gig. All it takes is for somebody to come in there with the wrong attitude, and that's it. I don't care how faithful you've been. I don't care how cold you are. I don't care how much you learn the music. I don't care how much you show up on time. You just need that right person to come in there feeling some kind of way, and that's it. The person who hired you can fire you, and that's it. If you have no way of determining or having some predictability of what's going to come in, then you're just waiting for somebody to have a bad day, and that stream is over.
Oh, it happens. I mean, it happens like when the tour is in place and everybody got gigs and stuff. It's all good. It's all fine and dandy. But I've gotten calls multiple times. People hit me up. I was like, oh man, look, it's so and so. And they like, man, Q, man, what you doing? How do you do this and how you do that, man? I don't have this gig anymore, so I'm gonna be at the house. So I'm trying to figure it out. But it's just one of those things. Like, I was thinking while you were talking, I was thinking about the attributes of David when they called for him to play for Saul. It said that, hey, we know a man who's skillful on the harp. It said that he was a man of war, and it said that, of course, at the end, God was with him. But one of the things that I've talked about even before, that it said he was prudent in matters, and prudent means is to consider your future. And so when I, was thinking about that, I was like, wow. And I'm sure you did this too. I did this. We would study David, because David was a man after God's own heart. Plus, he was a skillful musician. He was a king. But his giftedness was not just playing the harp. He was, it was administration as a leader. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what I see in you, other like-minded musicians. It's really not that many. But I see more people who aren't considering their future. It's kind of like they're pressured to once you have a family and then the heat is on, you know. But I've seen a lot of cats be at the mercy of the phone, where it's like whoever calls, I got to go on the road, I got to leave my family, you know, because this is just what I have to do to make money. And it's not necessarily every guy that, you know, chooses to go on the road and chooses to play with all these different artists saying that they're not Christian. You know, they're just at a point where they don't have these other skills, or they don't have these other things going for them, so they have to do what they feel they have to do, you know.
Absolutely. And I think you bring up David, that to me brings an interesting point. David, what I love about that, when they went and sought for David had already been doing.
Yes.
David had already been doing the thing that they went and brought him to do. So he was already prepared in a sense. He didn't come up, and I think musicians, this is twofold. One, the goal for us is to land the gig, to get the money.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's the bad part. Because that's short term. That's low hanging fruit. You know, so when you're only prepared just to get the gig, now you get the gig, now what?
Yeah.
And so I think most of us work harder on our gift than we do on ourselves. So our gift is very much developed, and some of us can kill. I mean, you put us in any situation, we're gonna wreck shop because the skill is developed. But half the time, a lot of those musicians who are so skilled and so good at their gift, their integrity is shot. So while David was while David was in the shed working on, you know, whatever he's playing, the harp or whatever, David was also working on his integrity, because he talked about what he'd done for the sheep. I fought a lion for the sheep. I fought a bear for the sheep.
Mm-hmm.
That was dealing with, because it could be a situation where, bro, I don't know what happened to that sheep. Like, I was watching him and I turned around looking and it was gone. And that could have been the story. Or he could have did like most people, like, bro, it was a lion. You expect for me to fight a lion? So that was personal decisions that David had to make in the backwoods where nobody was watching, or in the you know, in the fields when nobody was around. There were private decisions that made public, what's the word I'm looking for? There were private decisions that David made that made him look better publicly because of what he did in private.
Come on now.
And so he's working on his character. That takes character. Number one, to fight off a bear or a lion. Regardless of the order that it came in, that took character, because you couldn't even like, nah, man, I ain't doing that. I'm not fighting for this. Nah, we got 99 more. We're good. You know what I'm saying? So David is making character decisions in private when nobody but God is watching. So now it makes it very easy to fight a Goliath, because if I've done this for sheep that most people are assigning to somebody else to go tend for, because they ain't going back and forth out there looking after the sheep. So if I care that much about sheep to go risk my life twice that we know of, that's written down, to fight off something bigger than me for sheep, why wouldn't I fight for God's people and risk my life?
That's right.
So that character development that's happening in private, he was doing more than just sitting back playing his instrument.
Come on. Ooh.
You know what I'm saying?
That's powerful.
There's character development that's happening that I think so oftentimes, my battery is about to die, so let me do this.
Switch it.
Yeah. Let me do a pause real quick.
Pause. Okay.
So I believe ultimately the character flaw comes with most of us as musicians, because we're taught to focus on the gifting, or the focus on the skill, and not necessarily build the character. And so that's what ends up killing us. So we don't think about the long term, because we're only thinking about the shed. Like most cats, most musicians play for other musicians. That's one of the bigger problems. Most of us play for musicians, and the thing about it, musicians most of the time are not your consumers.
Not your audience. That's right.
That's not your audience. Well, we'll consume for free. We'll come and eat, but it's kind of almost like give me, because we're all out here trying to somewhat do the same thing, as opposed to preparing and getting your stuff for the people who are your actual audience or your actual consumer. Because there is an audience where you do sell to musicians, like I do with certain things that I do, but for the most part, you're not doing that to get the applause of musicians.
That's right. That's
one of my favorite, and I'll end with this. One of my favorite scriptures have become this: Colossians 3:23. That's a very familiar passage of scripture, I'm sure, for most people. But just in case somebody don't know it, this has become one of my favorites, where it says, work willingly at whatever you do as though you were working for the Lord rather than for people. I think it's more so as a musician where we kind of feed off of the energy of the crowd. Naturally, we're performers. So we naturally feed off the energy of the crowd. If the crowd feeling like they ain't feeling us, we feeling some type of way about it. Sometimes that can cause depression for us because we feel like, man, it wasn't that good, or maybe I didn't do this, or maybe the crowd ain't feeling the music. Like, there's so much mental stuff that go on when the crowd doesn't respond to what we're doing. But when we shift the focus, and I remember even as an artist, that was the focus shifter for me. Like, you know what? Instead of focusing all my energy on trying to entertain a crowd, what if this is just me, my philosophy that I now take, what if I sent this directly up to God? And even as an artist or entertainer, so to speak, if I sent this directly up to God, this vertical, and I allow people to come along for the ride. I invited them to come along for the ride instead of trying to go horizontal in hopes that we get vertical. I hope God is pleased with this. No, let me just go ahead and try to please him anyway. And if the people are pleased by it, that's great. If they're not, that's okay. I know where the glory goes to. And so now I don't have to worry about the people.
That's rare, man. That's very good, bro. That's like my perspective as well. That's beautiful. So let's let people know where they can go to check out some of the things. Because I think also I wanted to say this too, because it made me think about the book.
Okay.
Because what you're talking about, the Christian musician, learn what your real gift is and how to succeed with and beyond your music.
Yeah.
I put that out like in 2015.
Nice.
It's pressing on me to really go in and really talk about what the gift really is.
Okay.
And what I learned was that it's not your musical ability. The musical ability is just one avenue that your giftedness is displayed through.
Wow. Hold on. You can't speak. Back up. Say that one more time for the folks in the back.
So your giftedness is not your musical ability.
Okay.
That's just the avenue or one medium that your gift is displayed through.
That's good.
But you're see, that's what I'm seeing. That's what I saw on you. It's like, yeah, you're a great bass player, but you're a great producer, and you're also entrepreneurial minded. You have, you find value in being a father, being a husband. So you got this giftedness that your wife and your kids are benefiting from.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But it's your mindset. It's the way you think.
Yeah.
But as a kid, we'll have these, ambitions and desires. We want to play this instrument. We want to play on stage. We want to create music. Those are great things, but God will let you go through that and you'll shape your music and you'll have a voice sonically. But really, God was preparing you for a bigger mission. Like what you was talking about with David. That's what I learned.
Yeah.
Because the gifts, and when you talk about the gifts and you talk about preachers and the fivefold ministry, and you talk about preachers, teachers, and prophets, and being able to prophesy, or having a word of knowledge, and all of those different gifts, music is not listed there. But of course, music operates under helps. You know what I'm saying? It can help people. It can encourage people, yes. But as a man, I think our giftedness, it should be, especially when you become a husband and father, it should be administration.
Yeah.
And so David is noted in the Bible and recognized as being one of the greatest kings.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't really necessarily speak to his musicianship, but at the same time, what are the Psalms? A lot of the Psalms are songs. You know what I'm saying? So his songs and everything still made the Bible. So that's a powerful thing.
That's funny. So you said David was obviously his skill to play is what got him to the palace. Now God already anointed him to be king, but his skill to play is what got him to the palace, or got him the promotion into the place that he was going to be. The skill. So in other words, music, us as musicians, if we took a play from David's playbook, the music ability, or the musical ability, is always a means that we can leverage to get us to the place that we're trying to go, or get us to the people that we're trying to persuade, influence, whatever the case may be. Music is always the means. Now, it plays a lot of roles as far as supporting, healing, and all the properties that we know music does, but music is never the end goal.
That's right.
David, so Solomon is considered one of the wisest men to ever live, but only because he was trying to measure up to David.
His dad.
He was only trying to measure up to his dad. Because he's like, I've been bestowed this duty to do this thing, and I don't know what I'm doing.
Yep.
So, God, these are your people, and my dad has done basically such a great job. I want to judge rightly. I want to do what I'm supposed to do the right way, in the best possible way. Myron Golden paraphrased the prayer. He says, Lord, grant me the wisdom to do the thing that you put me here to do, and to serve the people that you placed me here to serve in a manner that pleases you. So I often pray that prayer myself, because that's paraphrasing the Solomon's prayer, because Solomon understood, regardless of how good he might already be, he's not good enough to do what he's called to do. And I think sometimes the arrogance of musicians is, once we get so skilled on our instrument and we achieve a level of mastery, we think we can do it without God. And when you only look at being able to execute the song or the session or the gig as that's the end goal, then you'll always miss the big picture. Because exactly. David could have looked at it as, man, I'm up here in the palace, bro. I made it. I made it, but getting to the palace to play for Saul was never the end goal.
Come on now.
And you have to stay connected to God in order to navigate your way. Proverbs 3:5-6, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him and he'll direct your path. David had to stay connected and trust and talk to God the whole way to figure out where he was going. Because he's anointed to be king, but the king trying to kill him.
Jealous. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? You know you have, David was a warrior. Like, you're killing it in these battles. Saul has slain thousands. David has slain tens of thousands. So the people are praising you. Not even for your musical ability no more. They are praising you about the level of warrior that you are. So it's easy for David to get caught up in his own head about it and reading his own press. But David knew, I gotta stay connected to God. That's the only way this thing works.
That's right.
It's the only way the thing works. So yeah.
And yeah, it's levels to it because, like, what does it say? How we prophesy in part. We don't know everything, but God will give us what our assignment is at this particular time. And as we accomplish that assignment, he'll be like, okay, great. So let me give you this.
Yeah.
So, it was a time you can remember yourself and myself where it was all about the saxophone.
Yeah.
And then there was a time when I got something to record with, I was all about recording, And then when I got a EWI, I was like all about the EWI, you know what I'm saying? Then I learned to put videos up on YouTube and create a membership site. I was like, oh, it's all about doing this, And then it was a time when it was all about practicing. But the thing about it, as you mature and you grow, you start seeing that I need to shift. I need to change, especially when you get married and you start having kids, and then that financial issue is there. And then you start learning, oh man, I don't need to play these types of gigs, or I don't need to be in this environment, because it's spiritually too much of a sacrifice, or it's just uncomfortable. So I need to create now with all the skills and everything I have, and I need to package up something so that I can make money, like what you did. So let's transition. You said, and we're gonna close it out with this. So you wrote a book yourself. I wanted you to share that and how people can get access to it.
Yeah. So I wrote a book. I don't have a copy in here, I don't guess. No, I don't think I have a copy in here. But anyway, I wrote a book, 10 Ways to Success, The Working Musician. We released that book 2020, I want to say. I wrote it in 2019. I think we released it during the pandemic. But anyway, that's a book basically how you can be anybody, anywhere, in any city as a musician, and you don't have to be famous to have success as a musician. That's the preference of the book. But basically what the book is about anyway. So that book is available on Amazon. If you want to find it there, it's available on my website, JermaineMorgan.net, in my store. You can also find all the other stuff, that we've been talking about today that I've done there on JermaineMorgan.net. So that's the easy way to get to it.
Right. Another highlight is the shared tracks.
Okay.
Tell them about the shared tracks.
So shared tracks is a venture. I'm not the owner of that company. Carlin McCullough is the owner of that company, and that was his vision. I'm simply one of the producers, and basically what Shared Tracks is a place where drummers can find play-along tracks to just share to, and drumless tracks, drumless play-alongs. And so I've produced several things for Shared Tracks. Been a producer since day one with the company, but I've produced several play-along tracks for drummers, notable drummers like Eric Moore, Brian Fraser Moore, countless other drummers have used the tracks in various videos. You'll find them out there online, where a lot of people have planned a lot of the tracks that I produce for Shared Tracks. And so, yeah, just another venture that I have my hand in, that, way of creating passive income as a producer as well.
Beautiful, man. So yeah, I appreciate you for taking the time to come on and share with us. It's always a blessing. We always have great conversation. Yeah. So thank you.
Absolutely. I guess we got how many minutes we got left?
We good. It's not.
All right. So I wanted to say this because I've been because of my borderline controversial topics as it pertains to Christian musicians playing secular music. I've been kind of criticized because people think I'm against Christian musicians playing secular music. And I always have to make sure that I give context, or I don't have to, but I try to make sure that I give context for where I come from with that perspective. Now, I'm not against Christian musicians playing secular music. Here's my thing with that, because, there's plenty of secular gigs that I play. And if I were against it, I would be a hypocrite, because I played plenty of secular gigs. But what I was saying and how I kind of say what I say it's based on the standpoint, your personal walk with Christ, your conviction, and all of it was that let all of us work out our own salvation with fear and trembling. Like, you need to figure that out for you. For me, and where I was in my life personally, doing certain secular gigs contradicted with who I say I was. Certain gigs. Now, there have been gigs like smooth jazz gigs, or like gigs that the music wasn't provocative. It might not be Christian music, so to speak, but the music wasn't provocative. And like, I've done those gigs, you know, it was cool, and I go about my business. But there are other gigs and other environments that these gigs came up, and it's like, nah, I'm not doing that no more. Like, it almost felt like it wasn't necessarily a club, but it felt like that kind of environment where there's a lot of, you know, drinking and people like partying and dancing. And I'm like, I'm feeling like a phony in here, because this is not me. This is not my character. And also what it's doing for me. Here's the thing, in terms of context. They're either drawing you or you're drawing them. Now, if your relationship and your walk with Christ, you're not in a place where you know you're going to go in that environment and draw somebody, and each time you're doing that, it's eroding who you supposed to be or who you claim to be, then you might need to reevaluate, do you need to be doing this gig? And so that's what I would say to a musician when people ask those questions and we want to have that argument, because I understand this is a profession. This is how we make, as you said, this is how we make our money. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But how are you spiritually preparing yourself to go into these environments? Are you going, because there's sometimes we have to go into these territories to be a light in the darkness. But there's sometimes we don't. We're doing it because we want to do it. And we're using the excuse, well, I got to do this, when you actually don't have to do that. There are other ways. But so my thing would be with musicians that are dealing with that particular topic, maybe you need to seek God.
Exactly.
Seek God. I think it's at the risk of misquoting, I think it's Matthew 7:7, you know, ask, seek, knock, where it talks about that. You know, ask and it shall be given, seek and you shall find, knock and the door shall be open to you. You also asking God for direction on, God, should I even do this? And wait to hear from him. Don't always do a money grab situation. You're jumping at the money, because you're taking this gig. I've had this happen where I took a gig, and because I took that gig because of the money, I'm on my way to the gig. I get a call about doing a session that I could have did from my house. That would have made more money, but because I ran after the money, I missed the session. You know what I'm saying? So those situations have come up. It's not often, but those situations have come up to where, because I took this gig trying to get to the money, I lost the opportunity that came had I waited. And yeah, go ahead. I see you want to jump in.
Yeah, and just so people understand, like, you know, you're at a level, I'm at a level, you could be all over the world. We could be doing a whole bunch of stuff. But Jesus said, if any man follow me, he must first deny himself, pick up his cross, and follow me. That's what it is. Look, and so it's not about the hype. People was trying to follow Jesus because of the hype. It's like, nah, if you're gonna follow me, you gotta eat my flesh and drink my blood. They was like, oh my goodness. Yeah, and they scattered. You know, so the thing about the word of God, it says, Hebrews 4:12, that it's quick, it's powerful, and it's sharper than any two-edged sword, rightly dividing asunder of soul and spirit and joints and marrow. And it is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart, you know. So you got to come clean. You can't fake it. You know what I'm saying? You can pretend that you something, or you can probably fake and confuse people, but you got to come clean to God. There's no hiding. You know what I'm saying? So you just got to be honest with yourself and let your convictions and let the Holy Spirit, that's why I put out the last song about conviction, because the whole thing is you got to think about like what you're doing before you do it. Because you do it and then you discover, oh man, I shouldn't have done this. Because now you've set something in motion that you can't reverse. You just got to deal with the consequences now. You can repent, you can turn later, but you still like harvest, seed time and harvest, sowing and reaping. It's like, you know, it's you can't stop it. So, I mean, I've looked at, as you were talking, and people, touring musicians and people I'm looking at who were out there, got into perversion, drugs and sex and time away from their family, people divorced and all of this stuff, or cats not married to this day, or cats don't own no property. Of course, the list can go on. It's like, yeah, you took the gig. You wanted that. You can have that aha or epiphany moment. It's like, you know what? I need to do something different. Yeah, but you 35, you 40 now, and not married. You know what I'm saying? Or no kids.
I know exactly what you're saying, man. That you make a good point, and it brought this verse to my mind, where it talks about Psalms 1, and I know you know where I'm going when I mention this.
I love it. Yeah, I love that.
Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of the sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scoffers, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law does he meditate both day and night. He is like a tree planted by the streams of water that yields fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither, and in all that he does, he prospers. And then it goes on to talk about, and the wicked are not so. So I think going back to the fact of you saying, you got to make a decision. You got to be honest with yourself. What's your real intention? Because I think that's what it comes down to. What's the real intention of your heart when you're going after these things? Are you just running after the money? Or are you just doing it? We say, well, we got a network. I did. When I moved, and my story is different from, I know everybody has their own story. I kind of went opposite of what everybody was telling me to do when I moved to Atlanta. People, and I've been like that. I've never been a crowd follower. Like if everybody's running over here, I'm probably gonna go this way. That's just me, and just how I'm wired. But everybody's telling me when I moved to Atlanta, man, you got to get out to Apache, and you gotta the battery down again. You gotta get out to Apache, and you gotta go to this place, and you gotta go to that place. And I didn't do any of that. And the Lord blessed, he blessed the path that I was on, and I was grateful to him for doing that. And so I'll save all that for another talk, but yeah. Yeah.
Amen. Well, yeah, you know, we can go, bro, but this was definitely a great conversation, and I'm sure it'll be a blessing to those that watch it. So I just appreciate you for taking the time to be on. And make sure y'all go to JermaineMorgan.net to check out what he has going on. And we will definitely be releasing some new music as well, so be on the lookout for that. We will let you know when that is available. So thank y'all for listening to this podcast, watching this podcast, and we'll see you on the next one.
Peace.
Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to Nuggets for the Sound Musician. Stay tuned for more tips to elevate your music journey. We invite you to apply to become a mentee at letsgetsound.com. We're looking forward to helping you level up.